put more responsibility on our point guard this coming year than maybe we have in the past. But depending on who you have on your team, what your personnel is like, that's the decision that you have. It's not a cookie cutter type of break. But the responsibilities for Chris would be, number one, he receives all outlet passes. He receives all outlet passes. This isn't like, hey, first come, first serve, we throw it to the first guy we can find. I don't want our small forward bringing the ball up. We used the terminology when we were at Wake Forest, and Chris Paul was excellent at it. Number one, he's going to hunt the ball down from his bigs or from whoever got the rebound, but he wants to catch it on the run. Catch it on the run. Coach would emphasize that all the time. If I could have a ball for Chris real quick. Chris is bringing the ball. I want you to scoot down for me, Chris. I'm going to be your teammate for a second here. If Chris is pushing the basketball, just a very, very simple rule is if he ever advance passes the ball, go ahead and advance it to me, Chris. In transition, as soon as he does that, he's always going to cut through to the opposite corner. He's not going to hang out. He's not going to stay where he's at. But Chris is going to go ahead, and he's going to cut through. He's not even going to look for the basketball. We want to get spacing on the floor. So anytime you advance the ball up the floor, you're always going to cut through. Now, this is where it sort of goes into our personnel this year. I don't want a lot of advanced passes. We have one kid on our team who's an absolute flamethrower from three. The kid can shoot the lights out of the basketball. He's not a very, very capable ball handler. He's not going to be able to break guys down and get to the rim and make teammates better. And so our rule for him is if we're going to advance the ball up the floor, he had better have an opportunity to shoot the ball from three. If he doesn't, we're not going to put him in that position. And Chris, as my point guard, is going to have to make that decision as he's coming down the floor. Now, if you have multiple players, a few years ago we had Jordan Crawford, who's now the two guard for the Wizards. We had Mark Lyons a year ago. We've had guys that are really, really capable of catching that thing, Des Wells, and getting to the rim. In that case, boy, did we really stress advanced passes up the floor. Simple rule. Point guard advances the ball, he's always going to cut through opposite. Come on back here, Chris. One of the things that's really important if Chris keeps the basketball is we always want to keep it in the middle third of the floor. Don't get yourself pinned in on the sideline. And I don't care if he navigates from one side of the floor to the other, but generally I want Chris to keep the ball in the middle third of the floor to put pressure on the defense. If he gets closer to one sideline or the other, defense sort of swings in to help, and now they build a fortress around the basketball. I'm going to talk a little bit about what my wings do here in a second, but if a capable ball handler for your team gets a defensive rebound, give me a couple wings out here that aren't necessarily point guards, but can handle the ball a little bit. Okay? Now, I don't know these guys' capabilities, but I would tell you that, come on back here, Chris. If we're transitioning from this hoop down to that hoop, what's your name? Marquis? Come here, Marquis. Marquis gets a defensive rebound, and we've already established rules, and we're going to establish roles as well with our players. Chris knows that Marquis is allowed to bring the ball up. Well, then Chris is going to essentially become what we call a wide runner. A wide runner. You're always going to have two guys that run very, very wide. If you don't feel like Marquis can handle the basketball, then Marquis is going to outlet it to Chris. We're going to emphasize catching on the run, keep it in the middle third of the floor, and that's how we're going to transition from defense to offense. You as the coach have to determine on your team who do you want bringing the ball up if they get a defensive rebound or if they get a steal or a loose ball. And I'm not talking about 3-on-2s and 2-on-1s. I'm talking where it's a conversion where the defense is getting back. Again, our team this year, we're going to have a lot of outlets to our point guard. I don't want those guys being put in positions where they're not going to be as successful.